As the DOJ's Epstein cover-up rumbles on, damning drone footage from Little St. James Island has surfaced. And it confirms what the government and media have been desperately trying to keep hidden. Prince Andrew wasn't the only royal caught in Epstein's web. His older brother, the man now known as King Charles, ruler of Britain and the Commonwealth, was also ensnared in the blackmail ring. And Charles's role is even darker than Andrew's. We're talking about occult rituals and pagan rites with Luciferian influences. We're talking about underground stables, holding children as young as 5. And for one unlucky child, it was more than just trafficking. It was sacrifice. The footage, captured by John McAfee shortly before his highly suspicious death, blows the Epstein cover-up wide open. King Charles's dark past is finally catching up with him. From his long-standing friendship with Jimmy Savile, Britain's most notorious predator, to his close mentorship under Lord Mountbatten, Britain's second most notorious predator, to the emerging ties with Jeffrey Epstein. The pattern is impossible to ignore. For decades, these connections were dismissed, downplayed and buried. But now, the world is waking up, and people are speaking truth to power. Like this man in Canada, who asked Charles how many kids the king molested on Epstein's island. The DOJ cover-up of the Epstein files has been scandalous, with redactions protecting elite paedophiles rather than victims. But the evidence that has slipped out accidentally has confirmed one thing: Epstein was running a honeypot operation. And people are beginning to ask the question that once seemed unthinkable. How long will the elite be allowed to protect their own? Despite the redactions, enough information has slipped out to confirm shocking reports about King Charles's visit to the island. We have that information coming right up. And about Epstein's underground bases, where girls as young as 5 were kept for Epstein's associates with darker tastes.
Everybody's saying that the Epstein file redactions are very clearly protecting the perpetrator, but I need you guys to understand how blatant it is. I'm going to show you an example, and I want you to keep in mind how many times you can tell that the reference is to multiple people, because the girl will have said they, then they did this, and they did, but the only part that's not redacted is Epstein's name. This particular victim is sending an email to someone saying, "Sorry this took so long. Please let me know if you need anything else." And there's a preliminary questionnaire to see if she's actually a victim of Epstein. I was born into sex trafficking. I was trafficked beginning at my earliest memory. I do not remember a time that I was not trafficked for sex. According to birth certificate from blank, my biological parents, I do not recognize them as parents, blank and blank, began to sell me for sex in the town of blank. There were many men that were brought to their home to have sex with me. I was taken to many states in the US to sell me. I was forced by threat by blank, comma, and Jeffrey Epstein of being killed, bodily harm, and threats of harming other children if I did not have sex with them and any other people they sold me to. Sold. Remember that word, sold. The rape and sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein happened year blank. I was about blank years old at the time. Why would the names of any of these people or locations be redacted? Location alone is not going to identify the victim. The redaction is not long enough for it to be first and last name of the parents, so that wouldn't identify the victim. Anyway, at the time, I was taken to an underground location. I was blindfolded, so I would not know exactly where I was at. It was dark, and when we went through doors, we went downstairs. There was also an elevator in the location. I was kept in a stall. It looked like a horse stall that had short walls on the sides so you could see inside. It wasn't really to keep me and the other little girls inside. It was to make it where we could be viewed. Epstein would walk past each girl, including myself, with a lot of men following him, and they would judge us. He told me I was fat and ugly, so that's what he called me. Redacted. And he said I had to pretend it was him to see if I performed well. What do you think that says? Here's the report from the investigator from Hope for Justice Nashville, summarizing what she said. On blank, investigators received a phone call from blank, who was referred by blank to Hope for Justice. Blank stated she had been sexually trafficked by blank when she was approximately 5 years old. Not redacted this time. And again when she was 17. Blank wanted to know if her allegation could be investigated. Blank was if you're lying, you don't contact someone and say, hey, can you look into this and make sure I'm telling the truth? It's more like, this happened. Here are the details I remember. If you look under his fucking house, you might find a stable.
It wasn't only Zorro Ranch in New Mexico that housed underground facilities where Epstein's darkest experiments and crimes took place, out of sight from his older teenaged victims. On Epstein's Island, infants and young boys were also housed in secret locations away from the main compound. This is where John McAfee's drone footage has blown the whole investigation wide open, and King Charles and his friends are sweating bullets as we speak. Don't go anywhere. We have the footage after this important word from our sponsor. The FBI reportedly knew as early as 1996 that Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking children for Epstein and his network of powerful associates, including presidents and royals. And what did they do? Nothing. For over a decade. 10 years, and in that time, countless young lives were shattered. Federal prosecutor Alex Acosta later revealed that he was told to back off investigating the elite paedophile ring, that Epstein belonged to intelligence, and the case was off limits. That kind of order could only have come from the Attorney General, or the President of the United States. Prince Andrew wasn't the only royal caught in Epstein's web. He was just one of the foolish enough to get caught and thrown to the wolves. But there's another figure who's managed to stay in the shadows. His older brother. What you're about to hear is dark, it's disturbing, and yes, it's dangerous. But it's the truth. And according to a member of Mel Gibson's child trafficking task force, future generations will speak about Prince Andrew's crimes as nothing more than a footnote. The real villain will be King Charles.
I was brought in as part of a forensic review team, independent contractors. We were told it was a standard drone reconnaissance pull, part of a routine island scan. But once we saw the footage, we knew it was anything but routine. Location was Epstein's Island, Little St. James. Late evening, dense canopy, firelight flickering through the trees. But the most chilling part wasn't the setting, it was the people. At the center stood Charles, masked and robed, leading what can only be described as a ritual. He wore elaborately carved animal mask, boar or stag maybe, and an exaggerated wooden phallus strapped ceremonially to his body. It wasn't hidden, it was the focal point. He moved with authority. This was no guest. He was presiding. Around him, others danced and mimicked ancient rites, chanting in languages I couldn't identify, possibly Enochian or some dead dialect. Their motions were stylized but intense, some theatrical, some disturbingly real. Young victims, naked, restrained, or sedated, were paraded and positioned as part of the performance. It culminated with the selection of one, smaller, motionless, clearly drugged, placed in a wooden effigy and set alight. We saw the fire begin. We saw them watching. I took the footage straight to my handler. Within hours, I was pulled from the case, debriefed under sedative, and hit with a Section 12 gag order. I only know one other member of my team made it out. 2 disappeared. 1 was later listed as suicide in Maryland. No obituary, no funeral. The footage was traced back to John McAfee. He'd commissioned private surveillance over the island in early 2019 using ex-military drone pilots contracted through a shell company, Hades Optics. The raw files were split into 3 fragments and encrypted. 1 was intercepted. 1 ended up with us. And 1, we believe, is still out there. McAfee was dead less than 6 months later. Since then, any mention of the footage gets scrubbed. Algorithms kill the metadata within hours. Posts vanish. Domains go dark. Even Wayback Crawlers are blocked. We suspect coordination between MI6, Mossad, and a rogue domestic counter-intel unit. My guess? Something dark budget. Maybe spun off from DARPA. I keep hearing the name Vantacor. Every institution that could investigate is compromised. The DOJ has the names. Ghislaine Maxwell gave them the list. She can only quote them from memory because compromat was her father's legacy, and she carried it forward. And at the top of the list, Charles. Not just a visitor, a participant. The royals are insulated by centuries of ceremony, diplomacy, and secrecy. But if the footage is released and authenticated, the monarchy is finished. And not just the monarchy. This will create a trust in governments, media, intelligence networks, and justice systems around the world. The illusion of control. So yeah, they're scrambling, and they should be. Because once this footage drops, it's game over.
According to those on the inside, King Charles doesn't just participate in these rituals, he considers them his birthright. A legacy passed down through bloodlines steeped in secrecy, power, and ritual. Charles isn't the only one with blood ties to darkness in high places. Every European royal family can trace their ancestry back to the imperial bloodline of the Roman Empire. The Roman emperors, in turn, traced their lineage to the bloodlines of ancient Egyptian dynasties. And those Egyptian dynasties? They traced their origins back to Babylonian royal bloodlines, the first rulers in history to claim a divine right to rule over humanity. These same Babylonian royals were also the first to perform depraved ritualistic acts on children, and blood sacrifices and dark ceremonies they believed granted them special powers. These rituals have woven through history, and the royal family, along with elite families including the Rothschilds, continue to embrace child sacrifice and ritualistic abuse as their ancient rites and customs.
At its height, the Phoenician Empire rivaled the great civilizations of ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. But is there a dark side to this enigmatic people? Many archaeologists and historians believe they also sacrificed their own children in horrifying religious rituals.
We have this massive, very dramatic rite taking place in the dark, involving the cutting of the throat and bloodletting, accompanied by musicians.
The Phoenicians had a sacrificer, someone who was especially adept with the knife and could slit the throats very effectively.
A blood sacrifice on the altar, accompanied by the actual cremation on a funeral pyre.
The Phoenicians practiced a ritual of sacred prostitution. This Norman castle was built on the site where, in Phoenician times, the vast temple to Astarte stood. Gaia Savario is the author of a book about the Phoenicians in Sicily.
This is an extraordinarily mystical place. People flocked here from all over the Mediterranean. It was kind of Lourdes. And this was a place where sacred prostitution took place. And the prostitutes were girls from what we would say good family, offering their virginity to the goddess Astarte.
According to Roman and Greek historians, it was common practice among Phoenician aristocrats to bring their virgin daughters to the temple when they reached the age of puberty.
The girls had to go to the temple of Astarte and stay there and be lain with strange men.
The high priest would then force them to have sex with visiting foreigners who paid the temple handsomely for the privilege.
It's time to dismantle a 9,000-year-old elite paedophile cult. We cannot allow a world where children are abused with impunity. That ends now.